All right, Sicha of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It is written in Lakuti Sichos Gimel, and it is on Haggadah of Pesach, the holiday of Passover. Let's see, how do we do it? There we go. Haggadah of Pesach. On the holiday of Pesach, as you know, we read the Haggadah of Pesach. The Haggadah of Pesach is an orderly set of paragraphs. That was the earliest one that was found was about 1,000 years ago, I think, from Rev Sadia Gaon, at least in printed form. Considering that printing presses were only like 500, 600 years ago, so everything was written by hand. So it's not amazing, not surprising that the first written ones are not more than 1,000 years ago. But the Jewish people have been saying the Haggadah of Pesach in some form or another since the Torah was given, because it's a commandment. It's one of the 248 positive commandments from the Torah that on the night of Passover we have to talk and tell and praise God for what He did when He took us out of Egypt, took the Jews out of Egypt. This is the basis of Judaism. In fact, the basis of all humanity, the basis of all jurisprudence, that God exists and God cares. And God took the Jewish people out of Egypt impersonally, and implying that there is bad and there is good. And God brought the Jewish people to Mount Sinai and gave them the Torah. And all of the Jewish people heard God speak. They all saw God. It says, Panim Dibra Hashem Aleichem. God spoke face to face to all the Jewish people. It's a little bit hard to believe. And it's impossible to understand, but nevertheless it's true. And this is the basis of Judaism. No other religion is based on such a strange, incomprehensible story. And at first glance, not even a necessary story. I mean, all the religions are pretty successful. You got billions of people that are believing that one man came from the desert or somewhere, or he came and he said, I have the word, I have the law, I have the way. God spoke to me, and they say, okay, we believe it. And here we have Judaism says that God spoke to all the Jews. Millions of them, 3 million people at least, says there were 600,000 just males counted from the age of 20 and up. So that's not counting the women, not counting the children. Let's say about 3 million people, and they all heard God speak. And 50 days later, they all participated or worshipped actively or passively in the golden calf, which is exactly what God told them not to do. It's the second of the 10 commandments. So we see that the Torah is very difficult. It's very difficult, but because the truth is difficult. It's difficult to do what's true. And we have to talk about this at least once a year. We have to mention going out of Egypt every day. It's a commandment to remember going out of Egypt every day. But we also, on the night of Passover, it's a special commandment to talk about and relate and tell stories about the details of going out of Egypt. And the rabbis instituted a form to do this. It's called the Haggadah of Pesach, the Haggadah of Passover. And the Haggadah of Passover is an orderly way that tells about the going out of Egypt and praises God, also so that we'll remember that the same God that took us out of Egypt is the same God now, didn't change. And He's creating us every moment. Why doesn't He do big miracles like He did back then? Well, you see, like I told you, it didn't really help back then either. So now we have to do it from ourselves, from below to above. So let's have a look at this. The Haggadah of Pesach, it starts off, first of all, we make Kiddush. Take a cup of wine, and you make Kiddush, praising the holiday. And then, after that, you wash your hands like you're going to eat bread. And if you don't know what it means, washing your hands for bread, ask a religious person, religious Jew. And then after that, we don't eat bread. You don't make a blessing on washing your hands. You eat what's called karpas. Some people use parsley. We in Chabad use a piece of onion. Some people use carrot. And you dip this parsley in salt water, and you eat it. You make a blessing on it and eat it. And then you have 3 matzahs in front of you that are covered over, and you break the middle one and put it aside. That's going to be it's called the afikomen. And then you begin the Haggadah of Pesach talking. Begin to start talking. You say the first paragraph. Now, really, this is not technically the beginning of the Haggadah of Passover. The Haggadah of Passover really starts after what's called the 4 questions. The children ask questions. What's the difference between this night and all the other nights, and etc. And all the other nights we don't lean over. Why do we lean over on this night? And all the other nights we can eat bread. We can eat whatever we want to. On this night we have to eat only matzah. And this night we eat bitter herbs. Why? And then that's really when the Haggadah starts. That's another 2 paragraphs. It says Avadi Mayinu. But before that, stuck right over here in the beginning, after we make Kiddush and after we wash our hands and eat this, what's called the karpas. And by the way, why do we eat the karpas? It says so that the children will ask, why? Why do you eat? Because the whole point of the night of Passover, in fact, the whole point of Judaism, in fact, the whole point of life, is that you have to ask questions. If you have to ask questions, a person that thinks he's sure, is in bad shape. You've got to ask questions, and then when you ask questions, then you can be at least sure of something. But usually, when you get an answer to a question, it should bring another 10 questions or 20 questions if you realize that you're ignorant. It's questions. I remember I heard once, I think I told this before, that Sir Isaac Newton, who is arguably the greatest mind that ever existed, right before he died, he said that I feel that I have walked at the edge of an ocean of knowledge, and my whole life has consisted of just me picking up one little pebble. So, knowledge, the more people want to know, the more they get to know, the more they realize they don't know. So that's the idea of asking questions. Okay, but before we start asking these 4 questions, before we have like the prelude to begin the questions, we ask the questions. That's like the beginning. That instigates the beginning, and then the answer to those 4 questions. That's the beginning. But before all this, we have an interesting paragraph, and the paragraph says like this: "This is the bread of affliction that our fathers ate in the land of Egypt." That's the first part, first sentence. Second part: "Anyone who wants to, who is cast down, come and eat. Anyone who wants, who needs to, can come and eat the Pesach meal with us." So first of all, you're saying this is the blood of affliction, and then you're inviting everybody, and then there's the third sentence. Now we are here. Next year we are going to be in the land of Israel. Now we are servants. Next year we will be free men. That's what it says. Good? Okay, the Rebbe is going to ask a question. This makes no sense. This makes sense. First of all, it doesn't talk about going out of Egypt. And even more, it ends up, it says, well, now we're slaves. Next day, that's not going out of Egypt. It's supposed to be talking about going out of Egypt. And it says, this is the bread that our forefathers ate when they were back in Egypt. So it's reminding us, throwing us back to then when we were slaves. We're supposed to be talking now about how we're not slaves anymore. So why is this put in the beginning? And if it's put in the beginning, it must mean that somehow or other it's summing up the whole thing. This is like the big message of the Haggadah. So let's see. Let's see how the Rebbe says it. He says it a lot better than I do. Heilach ma'anya the achla avotenu, etc. And next year we're going to be free. Those 3 sentences I said. Hapiska rishona anemra b'Haggadah heilach ma'anya. The first sentence, the paragraph which is said in the Haggadah is this one that I just read you. Piskazu einu nemra. It's not said in the beginning of the Seder. Before you make Kiddush. Like I said, you make Kiddush first on wine. And it's not even immediately after you drink the wine. After you drink the wine, you wash your hands and you eat this karpas. And then after that, you break the middle matzah. Ki in b'tchilas Haggadah, it said in the beginning of the Haggadah. This is the first paragraph you say. Lochi, and therefore, and then, sorry, Shenyana, who sipur b'yetzias Mitzrayim, that the whole thing of the Haggadah is talking about going out of Egypt. Lochin, therefore, nichtava miyad la'achar siman magid. Therefore, it's immediately after what you say, magid. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Before we even make kiddush, there is a custom that before we make kiddush, we say 15 words. Each one of them signifies another stage of this Haggadah of Passover. Kadesh, Urachatz, Karpas, Yachatz. Let's see if I can find. Here it is. Go. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say this. Kadesh, Urachatz, Karpas, Yachatz, and then it says Magid. By the way, some people sing it. Kadesh, Urachatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Urachza, Motzi, Matzah, Moro, Korech, Shulchan, Orech, Tzvon, Beirach, Halil, Nirtza. So here we have Kaddish, you make Kiddush. Rachatz, you wash your hands. Karpas, you eat the karpas. Yachatz, you break the middle matzah. And then Magid. Magid means you tell the Haggadah. That's the main part of this whole thing. That you do say the whole Haggadah, and then you wash your hands, and you eat the matzah, etc. So this was written immediately after Magid, and also Kishemigim the Piskazu Magbin Takara. You lift up the plate with the matzahs on it, or like we say, we reveal the matzot. That's our custom. Ki Hagadda, because the Haggadah and the telling about going out of Egypt has to be when matzot are on the table. Mikan barur, from here it is understood. Ki zeh she'omrim et piska im techilat seder. What you say this paragraph at the beginning of what's called the Seder, of the evening order of things that we do on the evening of Passover. It's not because we're really inviting people at Kol Elu She'en Lam, those people that haven't got what to eat. Like we said, anyone who needs, come and eat. Anyone who wants, come and eat the Pesach. It can't be that that's why. Al Ken Tzarech Lasod Zot. If we were really inviting people, like it says over here, anyone who needs, come and eat, then we should have done that right at the beginning of the night. Right? Yell out your window, hey, anyone who wants to come in, or even better, you should have done it when you were in the synagogue. Right? You pray the evening prayer, and then everyone comes home as soon as possible and makes the meal. Try to make it as soon as possible. The children don't go to sleep. But you're in the synagogue. That's where you should invite the people, not now. Lifnei sheholchim libeit haKnesset, bo nimtzaim anashim. You should have said that in synagogue when there are still people. Hayocholim, that they are able lishmoa, to hear the invitation. So why do we say it now? Anyone who wants to come and eat, no one's going to hear you. It must be that somehow or other this was stuck in the beginning, put in the beginning of the saying of the Haggadah, because it has to do something about the going out of Egypt. And therefore, it can't come in the beginning of the night until you have made Kaddish and you did these other things. You made Kiddush, Kiddush, and you did these other things, and you come to Magid, the part of saying the praises of God called the Haggadah. You have to understand. What has this got to do with talking about going out of Egypt? Below, the fact that this is right in the beginning of the Haggadah, this implies that Heilach Manya, this is somehow or other sums up the whole entire story of going out of Egypt that we're talking about this night. Keven shelafia nusach hamakubal lichaora ein mesupar klal. According to all these sentences I just said, like I told you before, none of them talks about going out of Egypt. This is the bread that we ate in Egypt. Anyone who wants to come and eat. Now we're here. Servants next year will be in Israel. What is it? What about going out of Egypt? Also, we have to understand why is this. It has three parts. Like I said, told you in the beginning. First of all, it says this is the bread that we ate when our fathers ate in Egypt. After that, it says anyone who wants to come and eat. After that, it says, now we're here and we're slaves, and next year we're going to be free and we're going to be in the land of Israel. Why is it divided up into three, and why is it even there? So the Rebbe is going to give us an amazing answer, something you would never thought of. To look at the whole Haggadah of Pesach in a totally different way. Okay, the Rebbe explains there's two reasons that some of the explainers give for this, and I'll just say it in a short way. Some people say that this is the bread of affliction that our forefathers ate. Come and eat. Why? Because there's a law that if you have a Jewish worker coming and work for you, and you promise him you're going to give him food, so there's no end to it, because every Jew is a son of a king, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or they're kings themselves. And if so, a king, he can demand whatever he wants to. So therefore, we have to say at the beginning of before we invite anyone, this is the bread of affliction. This is what you're going to get to eat tonight. You're not going to get any more. This is it. That's the condition. You want to come and eat? This is the condition. Because if you don't, then you're in trouble. Says the Rebbe, it's very nice. That's okay. But you have a sort of a big problem. What? Says the Rebbe, there would be enough, according to this, to say this is the bread of affliction, poor bread. You don't have to say that our forefathers ate in Egypt, if that's the whole purpose, just to tell your guests what you're going to give them. So it's a nice answer, but doesn't really sort of fill the bill. Also, later on, this what about the second and the third? It says, now we are slaves. Next year we're going to be in the land of Israel. Well, maybe we can say it like this: that we invite people in. That's somebody that people. There are some explainers who say this. It says in the Yerushalmi and other places, we say, okay, everyone come and eat. Now we're giving charity, and the merit of the charity that we're doing, inviting people in, is we can say, now we are here and we are servants, but next year we're going to be free in the land of Israel, in the merit of the charity. Because of that, the charity, that was what will take the Jews out of our exile and bring. That's a pretty nice answer. But says the Rebbe, the thing is that why does it have to say now we're in Israel, that now we're poor and we're here, and next year we're going to be in the land of Israel and free? Why does it have to say the two things? Just say that now, say it together. Now we are slaves here, and next year we'll be free in Israel. What does it say to say now we are slaves, next year we'll be free? Now we're here, next year we'll be in Israel. Why divide it up? Is there a reason why? We'll see. Okay, here we go. Here's the answer. It is known, Gimel, what the rabbis say, Al Magid of Rav Yankov, Hukom Mishpatav L'Yisrael, that God says his words to Jacob and his commandments and laws to the Jews. What God does, he tells the Jews to do. It's his commandments. God does the commandments. God commands the Jews to do his commandments. In other words, God also does the commandments. If so, it must be that on the night of Passover, God is also saying this same thing. Hey, Lachmanya, this is the bread of affliction that our fathers ate in Egypt. That God also was in Egypt. Okay, let me explain this, and this will be the first part. This will be today's lesson. What does it mean God is in Egypt? It says that when the Jews go into exile, God goes into exile with them. It says, Shechina lebavel imahim, Golo le'edom imahim. It says that the Shechina went into exile also with the Jews. Now you can ask a question, come on, the God of the Jews is supposed to be infinite. The God of the Jews, he's not spiritual. The God of the Jews creates the spiritual. The spiritual is just a creation of God. We can, just don't get me wrong, but we can say God does not really exist. He creates all existence. Any existence as we know it is being created by God. Even the existence we don't know, spiritual worlds exist. Angels, you know what an angel is? Angels, it says that the angel is a third as big as the universe, 3 times as big as the universe. There's 2 different opinions in the Talmud. There's infinite number of angels. What does this mean? It doesn't mean, and God, they're just creations. They're just screaming out to God. So all existence, everything that exists, not only does God enliven the world, but He creates everything that there is. That's the God of the Jews. This is totally incomprehensible. It's not totally incomprehensible. It's not incomprehensible. It's not even in the category of comprehension. It's like trying to see smells or to hear colors. The mind is not the proper instrument, vessel, sense to perceive the Creator. It's not that God can be created, like we learned, can be perceived, if you want to say, by the arousal of the heart, by faith and okay, but it doesn't end there. The infiniteness of God means that He's not limited to being infinite as we know it. The infinity of God is that He can also be finite. And what's the proof? He's creating the world. And He's creating the world, so to speak, from Himself. And that's totally misleading, but He's creating the world from nothing. He's creating the world from His Word. But without God's creating, there would not be any world. So we see on one hand that the world doesn't really exist. On the other hand, God cares about the world. He's creating it. And not only does He create it, but He's involved in the world. He cares. We say in our prayers, Zanu afarnes l'kol, meitiv l'kol, that God provides for all His creations, and He does good for all His creations. He benefits. In fact, that's one of the things the Jewish people are chosen for. We're the chosen people. We're chosen to tell the non-Jews how much He loves them. He cares them. He creates them. He feeds them, provides for them, protects them. Everybody, everyone in the world is important. Everyone in the world is unique. Nothing is here by accident. That's our job, is to tell everybody. First, we have to tell ourselves. So it says that when the Jewish people are in exile, then God is also in exile. Now I want to explain to you what does it mean in exile. What is exile? The Rebbe explained. I'll tell you from speech of the Rebbe. I've said this before. In fact, there's a speech from the Rebbe from Passover. What is exile? If you take a little, like a seed, an apple seed, and you put it in the ground, it starts to grow a little sprout. And then, instead of giving it water and rain and sunlight, you put a bucket over it. And you leave the bucket over it for, let's say, half a year. So if you're lucky, if there's some sort of a miracle, is the sprout will not just die away. Let's say it keeps going. It gets nourishment from the ground somewhere or other. You know, it rains around on the side. Maybe once in a while a little ray of light comes through the bucket, a crack or something like that. And a little bit of sunlight comes in, a little bit of air comes in, water. And so the sprout stays there. No, one day you go out into your backyard and you see that there's a little sprout there. You think, well, I'm going to pull this thing up. It's not doing anything. And you go into your house, you get a scissors or whatever you apply, this, and you forgot. You leave it there. And sure enough, it comes another month, another week. After about a half a year, so you come out one day and think, wow, that's the one I wanted to pull out. And look at it, grew up. I got to cut this thing off before you forget again. You come out one day and you say, hey, look, there's little sprouts over there. Little branches come out. You wait a little while longer, there's more branches. And then you wait a little longer and there's leaves. Oh, that's pretty amazing. And then you forgot to put the seed in the ground. Then I'm embellishing this story. And then you see that there's little buds. Right? So this tree the thing is already grown up. It's starting to give a little bit of shade. There's little buds of white flowers, and they really smell good. So, well, that's pretty good. I'm glad I didn't cut this thing off. And then all of a sudden you see there starts to grow apples. And the apples grow up and they're red and they're tasty. You eat one, they're tasty. And each apple has a bunch of seeds inside of it. So you can plant a bunch. So that's the idea of exile and redemption. Inside of every human being, especially inside of the Jews, like I said, the Jews have a job to wake the whole world up, is tremendous potential to do good. Just like a little sprout, things you would never dream of. Size, give shade, there was leaves, the trees give off oxygen. I didn't put that in the metaphor. And little flowers smell good, it's pleasant. Take a person that's depressed, he goes out and he sees the tree with the nice flowers, so there's hope. maybe the world is not such a bad place. He sees it's alive, and then there's fruits, and then there's sweet, and they give nourishment, and they have inside of them little seeds. Each one can make another potential that contains in it potential and potential, tremendous potential, if you want to call it infinite potential. And it was all concealed when that bucket was over there. That's what it is when the Jews are in exile. When the Jews are in exile, it means they cannot reveal their potential. The whole world can't reveal its potential. That's called exile. Like a person that's in prison, he's whole, he's complete, but he can't do anything. He can't. Removing the bucket, that's called redemption. That everybody can reveal their true potential that's inside of themselves. The good, potential to do good, the godliness inside of themselves, the life, the infiniteness inside of the inspiration that is inside of each and every one of us. When that happens, everybody reveals their goodness, so that does away with all the bad negativity in the world, right? No more depression and aggression and addiction and confusion and etc. All the negative things. The world can get along really well without those things. The world will get along okay without depression and aggression and things like that. And the world is filled with fear, hatred. The world can exist really, really good without any of those things. But it all depends on us revealing our potential. The potential has to come out. So that's only half of the picture. When the Jews are in exile, it says that God is in exile. That God also does not reveal his potential. And here on the night of Passover, we get a little glimpse of what God's potential is. That he took the Jews out of Egypt, and he revealed them his Torah, and he gave them, did amazing miracles, bread from heaven, etc. But it was on condition, and the condition was that we would try our best to do what God wants. That's our potential. We shouldn't make the rules up on our own. Like somebody then plays football and he brings a big bat. Right? You can't do that. Somebody wants to go into boxing and he brings all the football gear, right? You have to play according to the rules. Right? You can't bring a hockey stick if you want to play golf. So you have to play according to the rules. The rules are the Torah. That's what God gives us the Torah. So when the Jews went out of Egypt, God also went out of Egypt. When the Jews went out of exile, God, so to speak, went out of exile. When we go out of exile now, that we're in now, because we're now definitely not revealing our potential for good, Jews are confused. As then God, so to speak, he goes out of exile too. So every commandment that we do, God also does. And it's command, it says, Hashem Tzilcha. God is like our shadow. That's why it's such a tremendous, incredible, how do you say, what do you want to say it? The iniquity to try to negate the holy commandments of the Jewish people. Such a tremendous, I don't want to use the word sin, but I'll use the word sin. It's a destructive, maybe the most destructive thing that's ever been done is someone came along and said, I don't want the Jews you don't have to do the commandments anymore. I'll get you in heaven without the, we don't want heaven. We want this world to be a perfect place. So that's the idea of going out of Egypt. When we go out of Egypt, then God goes out of Egypt. The commandments that we do, God does. God reveals his potential. So on the night of Passover, it must be that God is also saying this thing. This is the bread of affliction that I'm eating in Egypt right now. Everyone who's hungry, come and eat. Now we're all servants. Next year we'll be free. What does that mean? It's going to be in the next class. God willing, tune in.